Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we are going to have a little chat about a couple of different things. There's going to be a lot of speculation in this one, so strap in and, join in. Just join in. There's a comment section. Go for it. So, a little while ago, not all that long ago, we saw a trailer, and it was under the heading A Regal Return, and it told us to come back on the 23rd of May, for all will be revealed. Maybe not all, but things will be revealed. And yesterday, this went up. And it is for the big Warhammer 40,000 preview online, Saturday, 23rd of May. It starts at 1:45 at British Summertime. There is Google available to find your personalised time zone, because if I went through all of them, we'd be here all day. But this is interesting to me, and I'm assuming you as well, because this is one of the online previews, and it is just 40k. There is no Age of Sigmar, there's no Warcry, there's no Lord of the Rings, there's now none of that. It is just for 40k. That's it. As they say, that this week will end with a bang heard around the galaxy as we blow the lid off something huge for the 41st millennium. There's so much Warhammer 40,000 gunners packed into this preview that we couldn't fit anything else in. Now, right down here, there's a line. So it says, catch it on Saturday. Fine. Good. We'll have more info for you as we get closer, but let's just say you might want to clear your calendar and arrange an online watch party with your friends for this one. That's quite a brave statement to make, because the previews have, I think it's probably contentious. There's been mixed reactions to the previews so far, and I can absolutely understand why. Personally, I don't really have a problem with them. Some of them have been better than others, admittedly, but I can understand why some of it might seem like unsatisfactory to a lot of people. I mean, they can't do their weekly preview stuff really because they're not releasing any new models. Production is halted currently, and so the release pattern that we're used to, we used to just a steady drip feed of new cool things, and that steady drip feed is basically gone. Instead, we're getting online previews here and there, and a lot of that is news that was supposed to be dropped in one massive, dump at Adepticon, where it was just, here's 4 hours of everything. And so what we're expecting versus what we got is not the same. The way it's being delivered is not the same as we were expecting either, because of course it's also content. A lot of the releases, I think it's easy to look at it and go, well, it's just model releases and I don't understand why they're holding on to it. It's also content. They want traffic being driven to being driven to all of their stuff, to all their social media, and especially to their website. And by breaking it up and actually turning it into something that's more of a recurring thing than just doing one big drop and then never talking about stuff again, it means they've got more to talk about and they can stretch it out that way. Whether that's a strategy that everyone is a fan of, not really by the look of things, but I can totally understand why they've done it, just as I can totally understand why people will find that not as satisfying. So for them to say you might want to clear your calendar and arrange an online watch party with your friends, there is a level of confidence there that this is going to be something actually pretty damn significant. The fact that it's just 40k, it's going to have to be something, or at least a bunch of things that are pretty damn big to warrant having the entire preview only be that. The previews that we've had before have been around an hour and a half to 2 hours, kind of anywhere in between those. So that's a solid amount of just 40k to be putting in one day. Especially since I'm pretty sure they would have stuff that they could put in with it, but they're not doing that. So it's going to be massive. It has to be massive. Now, what we're actually going to see is kind of up in the air in some respects. I have my own thoughts and ideas as to what it is going to be, but as always, I've not received any confirmation of anything. I've not been told anything. I say as always, not as always. For this video, I haven't been told anything specific, but I have my suspicions, as I'm sure you do as well. The fact that we had the trailer hinting at the return of the Silent King, and it said to come back on Saturday, now we're having a massive 40k preview on that Saturday. The Silent King is most likely going to come back. Whether we're going to see an actual model for it on Saturday is another matter entirely, but I'm assuming that it will be addressed, because they said it would. Along with that is a potential shift in terms of the story of 40k to something more leaning towards Xenos rather than Imperium versus Chaos. So that was the theme of the last edition of 8th and of the starter set for 8th. And a lot of the stuff that I've been told and I've heard and I've read from other people seems to suggest that it is going to take that shift towards Space Marines versus Necrons specifically. Of course, the Silent King would, of course, facilitate some sort of greater, perhaps unification or just shift in storyline towards that side of the conflict that the Imperium faces. Now, if we do get a starter set, and we do get a Silent King, I would firstly say that I don't think the Silent King would be in the starter set. That would be the first thing to say. I've seen a few people go, well, I don't know if they'd actually do that. I don't think they would. I think it would be separate releases that are linked, to be honest. Or perhaps we could see a similar situation with the release of the Silent King being the thing that happens before that new starter set and before the launch of that new edition. I'm still not entirely sure whether calling it a new edition is the right phrasing, the right way to go about it. Everything is suggested that it's just a tightening of the rule set and everything, in which case maybe saying 9th is a bit of a misnomer. It might just be essentially like the General's Handbook 2.0 but for 40k. It's going to be interesting to see how they approach it if it is something that big and that game-changing, literally. In terms of a starter set, if they do show a starter set off, Christ, lost the ability to talk completely there. It's because I'm about to move on to something related, but that makes me way too happy. The contents of that are really up in the air. Now, we did see ages ago a pixelated image of what could be Primaris flyers/bikes. That could be part of that starter set. It's possible. It's plausible. I don't know. I'm in two minds of that, because on the one hand, it would weight one side of the starter set to be very vehicle heavy, and would they do that? I'm not entirely sure whether they would or not. On the other hand, it would make sense for them to put new stuff in the starter set because they want it to be attractive not just to new players but also to existing players as well. They still want people who are already totally invested in the game to buy these things, and so putting like new Primaris stuff in there, and it will be Primaris if it's Space Marines versus Necrons because it'll be Primaris. That would make a lot of sense, but it would make for an unusual box, I suspect. In which case, are we going to see more in the way of infantry stuff? Could we see something to do with, close combat Primaris? Might we see a different type of Primaris unit that is not solely flyer or bike based? And are they actually going to show off that pixelated image? Now would probably be the time to do that, let's be honest. And that image has been floating around for quite some time. It would be nice to finally know whether that's real or not. I would really like that because it's still bugging me as to whether it actually is or not. Think it is, but it could just be a very convincing fake. Hard to know. In terms of the Necron side of things, I really hope it's new Flayed Ones, but that is because of a story that came out today. So there's a new Psychic Awakening story called Gone Dark. Now, this is the second Psychic Awakening story that's come out recently that has featured some interesting effects on citizens of the Imperium. So there have now been two stories, including this one, where there's been evidence of humans just becoming listless and lifeless and unmotivated to the point where they just die. They stop eating, they stop moving, they stop talking, they don't communicate, they don't do anything to try and take care of themselves. They essentially just lose the will to be. That is an incredibly interesting thing to me because this also, like this one, Gone Dark, has got potentially just quality change to the Flayed Ones that I really hope would be represented in a starter set. Like if it was a starter set of a Necron Overlord, of Flayed Ones, of like new Flayed Ones, new Warriors, new Destroyers, and Pariahs, that could be a bit much. That could be quite a lot. Although, having said that, I don't know, if you had 10 Warriors, 3 Destroyers, 3 Flayed Ones, and 3 Pariahs, that wouldn't be too far off what you got out of Dark Imperium, really, thinking about it. Because Dark Imperium is it's a pretty sizable box for what you get. Oh, maybe that is more feasible than I thought. But I digress. Flayed Ones. There is an instance in this story of what sounds very much like a Flayed One. So there is a ship, and Some Imperial Guard are sent to investigate the ship because it is just drifting. It has entered real space. It is just drifting there. And a squad of 5 are sent onto the ship to investigate. And I'm going to pick up about, let's start at the top there. So there's two of these guard who have gone to investigate the med bay, the first aid area, and found that basically the vast majority of the ship's crew are there, and they're just either dead of starvation because they've just fallen on the floor and not moved, or they're on life support. And they try and wake one of these guys up. And as you can see here, a soft hum came from the life support system as it pumped drugs into the dormant patient. Isrin took a step back, lifted her lasgun and aimed it at the comatose man. A side glance told her that... Such a bad name. Zarel? He's Zarel now. Had his weapon aimed at him as well. A few moments passed, but the man just lay there as unmoving and inert as the ship itself. There's a previous story where this exact same thing is actively happening to people. They are in a state of awareness of being able to see other people just shut down, and they themselves are starting to just shut down and not care about anything and are questioning why it's happening, but don't have the energy or the force of will or the strength to do anything about it. So this is like the next stage of what we've seen in a previous story, which I'll link both of these in the description so you can read them yourself. Isrin took a deep breath and closed in on him, almost reluctantly. Ever so slowly she bowed down. Eventually she could hear his breath coming in a slow, flat rhythm. His chest barely moved, but he was definitely alive. He just didn't seem to actually be in there. Isrin was about to say something, but the words caught in her throat as Zarel groaned behind her. She whirled around, instincts kicking in instantly as she aimed her lasgun. Cruel silver claws protruded from her comrade's stomach. Before Isrin could react any further, Zarel was violently lifted and hurled across the room, crashing into a row of gurneys. That was not the reason why she started screaming. Isrin squeezed the trigger of her lasgun, aiming it towards Zarel's killer as it sprung into sudden motion and rushed towards her. That is a flayed one. If we're talking cruel silver claws, that is spot on to the descriptions of flayed ones, where their fingers slowly change and shift into flensing knives and claws that they use to kill and strip the skin from their victims. The fact that he just appeared behind, grabbed, and then that was it. The guy was dead. That already was oh cool, flayed one mentioned. That's nice. I liked that in the story. And then it gets worse. It gets a lot worse for poor Isrin, because whilst they're doing that, in another part of the story, the other 3 members of the squad have gone to the bridge. They've got the data extractor, which will show what happened to the ship. They attempt to leave, and they get death marked. So 3 death marks just drop into the bridge, kill 2 of them, and the leader tries to run. The leader, by the way, is Isrin's brother. He's a sergeant, she is just a normal private, but they're related, which is what makes this next bit so awful. Because this is something that I don't think I've ever read Flayed Ones doing. Because the Flayed One did this. So, Gerrican, which is the name of Isrin's brother, who is attempting to run back to the dropship in the hangar, he makes a run for it. And then this happens. Gerrican, I'm so glad you made it, his sister answered. Gerrican stopped in his tracks and his heart seemed to skip a beat. Isrin, he whispered. She made it after all. She actually survived. They would escape this nightmare together. Yes, brother, the figure said, and came closer. As it stepped into the light of Gerrican's lumen, the sergeant felt his strength sapping out of his body, and he sank to his knees. No, Isrin, no. The skin of his sister was draped around the metal frame of the thing that prowled towards him. Beneath the empty holes where her blue eyes once sat, callous green lenses watched him, observing his every reaction with cold intent. With each step, blood dripped from the nightmarish apparition. Brother, the monster repeated, modulating the voice of his sister to perfection. And of course, Gerrican gives up, as you would. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I have at no point read about Flayed Ones not just taking the skin of their victims, but also absorbing or copying their personality. That is the first instance I've ever read where a Flayed One has not just taken, the physical from the thing that they've killed, but has also directly impersonated it to the extent of knowing things that only that person would know. So the Flayed One knows that Gerrican is the brother. The Flayed One knows what Gerrican looks like. It talks in Isrin's voice. It's creepy as anything. I just don't think I've seen anything to suggest that they could do that before. That feels new to me. Now, I could be totally wrong. And if I am, then do let me know. If there's other examples of this already, then great, I want to read them. But that, to me, that is like, I was going to say an evolution of the Flayed Ones. I don't know that it necessarily is an evolution, but it is scarier. It is creepier by far. That is a Flayed One who has killed someone, taken their skin, worn it, as they normally do, which is already body horror enough, and then directly addressed someone that they are related to using their voice. What the fuck? Like, that is dreadful. That's some Bear from Annihilation nonsense, and I absolutely love it. And I really hope that this is like a cheeky hint, a cheeky sign that things are changing slightly, that Flayed Ones, for a start, might be getting something new, and also have developed in a even more unsettling way than before. I mean, the way that Flayed Ones work is already creepy and weird enough. They have this insatiable hunger, this complete, like, all-consuming appetite to the point where they will kill stuff and then, like, rub the blood and the meat across their jaws that they don't have anymore because they're made of metal. And they live in their own, like, little pocket reality and just drop into real space and mess things up when Necrons go to fight, and they're all sorts of creepy and weird already. I mean, they wear the skin of the things they kill. That is creepy. Actively impersonating them and talking to other people as the thing that they are wearing is a whole new level, as far as I'm aware, of absolute horror. And I am here for it 100%, and I really hope that it means something. I really hope that this is leading somewhere. I mean, by the look of it, the Necrons are finding ways to completely drain the essence from people. They are completely draining their emotion, their ability to process, their ability to take care of themselves. They are draining their will to live from them to the point where they just lie down and starve to death because they can't be bothered to do anything else, and don't even know that they can't be bothered to do anything else. They're just stuck like that until they die. That's horrific. The addition of Flayed Ones that are now walking around, murdering, and then going up to people and being like, "Oh, yes, brother, I'm fine." When you're clearly not, because you just skin draped over an automaton. That is genuinely horrible. I really, really like it. It's so good. It's so more what the Flayed Ones deserve, and I would hope that it would be leading to something interesting for them, and possibly the release of a new kit, say in a starter set, building that part of the Necrons back up and reintroducing them as something more interesting, and just, building the horror a bit. Part of the draw for the Necrons, for me, when it was, when we go back to third again, is they weren't like any other race in terms of their motivations. They were very much, in that edition at least, in that codex, they were very much kind of soulless, borderline just automatic killing machines that had no concept of fear, that had no concept of failure, that had no concept of suffering. They just marched unendingly towards you and killed you, and you couldn't reason with them, you couldn't talk to them, you couldn't bargain with them. You either died or you got lucky and they phased out, and that's it. The Flayed Ones were like an extension of that. They were even worse because they were all of that kind of cold terror that the normal Necrons were, but with the added horror of the fact that there was still something emotional left in them. They still had something in there that drove them to wear the skin of the things that they killed. That being extended again to them being able to pick up, like knowledge or personality from the things they've killed and use it to hunt others. I really like that. That's a really cool evolution of that idea. So, yeah, I mean, I would hope that there's something involving them. I would hope that this isn't just something that's been thrown into this story for the sake of, let's make him a bit more creepy for this one occasion. I'd really like to see more of this kind of thing. Bring that side of the Necrons back. I mean, them having personality and stuff now is I don't dislike it. I'm not one of those people who thinks, third was the be-all and end-all of what Necrons should be, because there is already a faceless sort of terror that no one could bargain with in the form of the Tyranids. We already had that. 40k already had that exact army. The Necrons were a different flavour of it, but the presentation was kind of similar. It was that same sort of unending horror. You're never going to be able to stop them. You can't bargain with them or reason with them. We already had that. That already existed. And so giving them individual personality and actually having these different dynasties and stuff, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But at the same time, it did take away part of what I liked so much about Necrons, which was the fact that they just seemed completely incomprehensible. This introduces that back in. This actually introduces the kind of horror element that I think has been lost, and it's not just introduced it back in, it's made it way worse than it was. So I would love for this to be involved. I would love for this to be something that is addressed, for there to be some sort of fresh kind of take on the Flayed Ones, or at least that they are becoming more nightmarish than they were before. I just want that to be a thing. And if there was plastic Flayed Ones in the starter set, that would be even better, because that would mean that the current sculpts would be getting updated, and hopefully they would go back a little bit more to the original sculpts that were just that bit more terrifying, frankly. I mean, with that story, they deserve to be terrifying. Christ, it's awful. Anyway, that was very long and very rambly, as it always is here, but you're used to that at this point. If you have any random guesses, any speculation, then let me know in the comments down below what you think we're going to see this Saturday. Let me know what you think of that story and the other one. As I say, I'll link them in the description. Go and read them, and then, if you've had any thoughts or ideas, then put them down below. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think of that, and whether you like the idea of that being a new kind of development for the Flayed Ones, whether you thought they were fine how they were, or whether adding in their ability to directly impersonate things they've killed makes them even more absolutely nightmarish and horrendous. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link for Element Games in the description. You can click it if you like. It's a nice way to support the channel if you want to, but I will leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.